The night before my wedding, my fiancée looked me in the eyes and said, "I deserve someone with a bigger future." Then she took off her engagement ring, placed it on the table, and walked out of my apartment forever. 3 months later, she married a wealthy surgeon. 7 years later, she sat across from me in a job interview, and she had no idea I was the CEO. But before I tell you what happened that day, you need to understand how we got there. My name is Daniel Carter. When I was 26, I wasn't rich, I wasn't powerful. I was just a software engineer with a small apartment, a used car, and a dream. But I was happy, because I had Emma. We had been together for 4 years. We met in college. She was studying marketing. I was studying computer science. She was ambitious, confident, beautiful, and for a long time, I truly believed she was the love of my life. We planned everything together. The wedding, the house we would someday buy, the children we hoped to have. I worked overtime constantly because I wanted to give us a better future. Every extra dollar went into savings. Every sacrifice felt worth it because I wasn't building a life for myself. I was building a life for us. One evening, about 2 months before our wedding, Emma started acting differently. She became distant, always checking her phone, always distracted. Whenever I asked what was wrong, she smiled and said, "Nothing." But I knew something had changed. I just didn't know what. A few weeks later, we attended a charity gala hosted by one of her clients. That's where I met Dr. Nathan Reynolds, 40 years old, a famous surgeon, wealthy, successful, confident, the kind of man who entered a room and immediately became the center of attention. Emma couldn't stop talking about him on the drive home. "He's incredible. He's built an amazing life. He owns 2 houses." I laughed. "Sounds like you're impressed." She looked out of the window. "I am." At the time, I thought nothing of it. That was my mistake. The night before our wedding, Emma asked if we could talk. She sat across from me in complete silence. Then she finally spoke. "I can't do this." My heart stopped. "What?" Tears filled her eyes. "I love you." "But love isn't enough." I stared at her. "I don't understand." She took off her engagement ring. "I deserve more than struggle. I deserve a bigger future." And with those words, everything I had spent 4 years building collapsed in a single night. Emma left my apartment that night. Without looking back, I stood there for hours, still holding the engagement ring she had returned. The next morning, instead of getting married, I called every guest, one by one. There won't be a wedding. Some people asked why. Others already knew. Apparently, Emma had been seen with Dr. Nathan Reynolds several times before she ended our relationship. I was simply the last person to realize it. 3 months later, a mutual friend sent me a wedding photo. Emma was smiling in a designer wedding dress. Nathan stood beside her in a custom-made tuxedo. Behind them was a beachfront mansion in Malibu. I stared at the picture for only a few seconds. Then I deleted it, along with every photo Emma and I had ever taken together. That night, I made myself one promise. I'll never let someone decide my worth again. For the next several years, work became my entire world. I left my engineering job and started building a healthcare software company. At first, it was just me and one laptop in a tiny rented office. Most investors rejected my idea. "This market is too competitive. No one will buy your software." Friends told me to find a safer career, but every rejection made me work harder. I wasn't trying to prove Emma wrong anymore. I was trying to prove to myself that my future was never limited by someone else's opinion. 5 years later, hospitals across the country were using our software. Doctors relied on it every day. The company expanded faster than I had ever imagined. By the 7th year, we had offices in 4 states, more than 400 employees, and millions of patients benefited from technology my team had built. Ironically, the same medical industry that had taken Emma away from me had become the reason for my success. One Monday morning, my assistant walked into my office carrying a resume. "We have one last interview today." I glanced at the application. Emma Collins. For a second, I thought it had to be another Emma. Then I looked at the attached photo. My heart skipped a beat. It was her, 7 years older. The same eyes, the same smile. But something was different. The confidence she once carried was gone. My assistant asked, should I send her in? I closed the resume, took a slow breath, and quietly replied, yes. My assistant opened the office door. "Ms. Collins, the CEO will see you now." Emma walked in slowly. She was dressed professionally, but the confidence I remembered was gone. She looked tired, nervous. As soon as she looked up, her eyes met mine. She froze. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she whispered, "Daniel." I nodded. "Please, have a seat." She sat down carefully, still staring at me. I didn't know. You're the CEO? I smiled politely. Neither did you. The interview began. I asked the same questions I asked every applicant. Nothing more, nothing less. She answered professionally, but I could hear the nervousness in her voice. After a few minutes, she quietly asked, "Can I explain what happened?" I looked at her. This is a job interview, not a conversation about the past. She lowered her eyes. You're right. When the interview ended, I closed her resume. You have a strong background. HR will contact you after we finished reviewing all candidates. She nodded, then slowly stood up. Before leaving, she turned around. I'm sorry. I know saying it now changes nothing, but I've wanted to say those words for years. I didn't answer. She quietly walked out of my office. That evening, I asked HR for the remaining interview reports. Emma wasn't the strongest applicant, but she wasn't the weakest either. Then I noticed something unusual. One section asked, "Reason for leaving previous employer." Her answer was short. My husband passed away 2 years ago. After his death, the hospital where he was a partner was sold. My position was eliminated during restructuring. I stopped reading. So, Dr. Nathan Reynolds was gone. Life had changed far more than I realized. For the first time in years, I didn't feel anger, only sadness. Not because she had left me, because I finally understood something. The future she had chosen hadn't turned out the way she imagined. The next morning, my assistant entered my office. The hiring committee needs your final decision. I looked at Emma's resume one last time, then picked up my pen. I held Emma's resume in my hands. For nearly a minute, I said nothing. Finally, I signed the approval form. My assistant looked surprised. Should I send her the offer? I nodded. If she earned the position, she deserves it. Nothing more, nothing less. 2 weeks later, Emma joined the company, not as an executive, not because she knew me, but because she had passed every stage of the hiring process. I made one rule for everyone in management. No special treatment. If she succeeds, it will be because she earned it. Months passed. Emma worked quietly. She arrived before everyone else. She stayed late almost every evening. She never mentioned our past. She never asked for favors. She simply worked. One afternoon, my operations director walked into my office. I've been watching Emma. She's one of the hardest workers on the team. I smiled. I know. He continued. She turned down 2 promotions. Why? She said she wanted to prove she deserved them first. For the first time, I realized she wasn't trying to rebuild our relationship. She was trying to rebuild herself. A few days later, Emma knocked on my office door. Do you have a minute? Of course. She sat down quietly. I wanted to thank you for giving me this opportunity. I shook my head. I didn't give you anything. You earned your job. She smiled faintly. I know. But you also could have rejected me. After everything I did, you still treated me fairly. She looked down for a moment. Daniel, I spent years believing success was about marrying the right person. I was wrong. I should have believed in the man who believed in himself. I listened quietly. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect another chance. I only wanted you to know you were always enough. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then I smiled gently. I spent years wondering why you left, but I don't wonder anymore. She looked at me. We're different people now. I stood up and extended my hand. I hope you build a wonderful future. She shook my hand. Thank you. As she reached the door, she turned back one last time. I'll always regret the choice I made. Then she quietly walked away. I watched the door close, not with anger, not with sadness, but with peace. A year passed. Emma became one of the most respected people in the company, not because of who she once married or who she once loved, but because of the work she did every single day. She earned every promotion, every compliment, every opportunity, just like everyone else. One Friday afternoon, our company celebrated its 10th anniversary. More than 500 employees filled the ballroom. After my speech, people gathered around to congratulate me. As the crowd slowly disappeared, Emma walked over. She smiled. I wanted to congratulate you. You built something incredible. I looked around the room. I didn't build it alone. My team did. She nodded. That's one of the things I admire most about you. You've never needed to prove you're better than anyone. You just keep becoming better. For a moment, we simply smiled. Not as former lovers, not as strangers, just as 2 people who had finally made peace with the past. Before leaving, Emma handed me a small envelope. I wrote this a long time ago. I think you should have it. That evening, I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. Dear Daniel, the night I left you, I thought I was choosing security. I thought success belonged to the person with the biggest house, the nicest car, the highest salary. I was wrong. Success belongs to the person who never gives up on themselves. I didn't lose you because you weren't enough. I lost you because I couldn't see your future. Thank you, not for giving me a job, but for treating me with fairness when you had every reason not to. I hope one day someone loves you the way you deserve to be loved from the beginning. Emma, I folded the letter, placed it inside my desk drawer, and quietly smiled, not because she regretted leaving, but because I no longer needed her regret to feel complete. A few months later, I heard Emma had accepted a leadership position at another company. She came to my office before her last day. I wanted to say goodbye. I stood and shook her hand. I'm proud of what you've accomplished. She smiled. So am I. Then she paused. I used to think losing you was my biggest mistake. I looked at her. What do you think now? She smiled sadly. My biggest mistake was not believing in the person you were becoming. She walked away without looking back. This time, neither of us needed to. As I watched the elevator doors close, I realized something. Success isn't the best revenge. It never was. The greatest victory is becoming the person you were always meant to be, even after someone else failed to believe in you.